you walk around and you think, what have we done to ourselves? What did we do with 75 years of freedom? If you have no interest in your own community, in your own village, in your own town, nobody is going to save you. 90% of Bangalore is not planned. It is just organic growth. Villages come up. Villages used to be there and suddenly they become urbanized. Suddenly farmland becomes an apartment and, a bunch of farmlands becomes a tech park. It becomes a big center of employment, etc., etc. The road remains narrow. A government contractor is interested in the money, right? They are not interested in the finer aspects of design or the applicability or adaptability of the design to a particular situation. So they just come and do something. And of course, the open secret is there is no quality control because the contractor receives his money often based on a kickback. I mean, let me be very honest with you, right?
You want to come out into a shithole, it just takes 200 rupees to clean that up.
If you're interested in quality of life right now, then I suggest that you put down some time and money towards it right now. It will provide more immediate, more powerful, and more efficient payback, more efficient rewards than anything you pay to the government. Obviously, I've always been paying taxes, but the taxes went to Delhi.
There's a lot of learnings, right, from the ground, which you think you know, and I don't think people know that. Anyway, let's go. Thanks for coming on, Arvind. So for the what we've been trying to do is help understand why our infrastructure is bad in the cities, right? And how we are all chasing the government to fix the infrastructure issues. But here's what you have done and why it is interesting. I just wanted to kind of tell the story to the people. I wanted you to tell the story to everyone else as to what you have accomplished. See, the questions that we need to answer, like why you did what you did, and then how you went about doing it and the challenges you faced. And in the end, I think we need to leave with, is this something that everybody should attempt? Or some people should attempt? Or should this be the model in which infrastructure development can take place in pockets? It's whatever it is, self-serving or not.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, how do we replicate it or not replicate it? I think we should leave with that question. So Arvind has been, to all our viewers, has been a very, very strong pillar over the past decade in Brookefields layout, where in Bengaluru, where he lives. And he has been doing a ton of things that I think is inspirational for all of us to hear and see. You will hear from the horse's mouth today, but don't take our word for it. You should just go down and see it for yourself. The videos won't do justice. But what has he done? He has transformed a layout of how many kilometers, Arvind?
There's a main road which is a little less than 2 kilometers long, and but the real thing you have to look at is population density, right? Along those 2 kilometers is 4,000 families. That is 16,000 people. And it has one very large tech garden, which attracts a daytime population of maybe 20,000, 30,000 people. And a school, a very large school, which attracts a student population of 3,000, which means 150 cars and 150 school buses, and another 150 school buses and heavy truck, because a lot of construction going on. So overall, the data and population can shoot up to 30,000, 40,000. The resident population is 16,000. The heavy vehicular traffic is in the several hundreds. The light vehicular traffic, which I mean, more cars itself can be in the hundreds. Along a small narrow 2 kilometer stretch. So that's the situation we live in.
No, and that's the interesting part. It's the density, right? We want cities to be dense. We want cities to have a lot of people and have everything close by, so the efficiencies of scale are there. But the efficiencies of scale needs a certain kind of infrastructure that allows, that's a massive amount of people in a small area of probably 4 square kilometers or 4 or 5 square kilometers of...
I think that's about right.
Yeah. What you have done there is brought efficiencies to a single corridor, 2 kilometer road, which takes the brunt of all of these things, including the
Yes.
tech and the living and the school and a self sufficient community of many things. And not to forget, you also transform the lake nearby. Why did you have to do this?
Well, I think it's, first of all, I'd like to clarify that it's not just me. So I am a little uncomfortable with saying you transformed it. That is, I personally transformed. No, it was a joint effort. Many people are involved. These are public properties, the road, the two lakes, Kundanahalli Lake, Siddhapura Lake. It does require government, not only permission, but cooperation. It does require funding from CSR and so on and so forth, and it requires. I think the crown jewel of the whole thing is crowd-funded local, funding of all these public assets. So, having said all that, it is a very organic, community-led approach with a lot of community members contributing. Having said all that, the question is why. And I think the answer is quite simple and evident to anybody who walks out in any street in Bangalore, or 90% of all the streets in Bangalore. And you'll be faced with various indignities. I mean, first of all, you cannot walk safely. You could fall into a drain. It's quite possible. You could get run over. The street maintenance quality, the footpath maintenance quality is terrible. Traffic is not only large, is not only high, it is very chaotic. And besides that, there are, the drains are not maintained, the streets are not cleaned, trash everywhere, debris everywhere. So that results in floods because of all the trash accumulating in a place, going into the drain, flooding it up. People putting their sewage into their drain, that causing this floods actually having a very large sewage component and all that. So all these problems kind of feed into each other. And the thing is, I think we've reached a certain point where things are so bad that people don't even, they do have no sense of belonging to the city, and they think that they can further abuse the city because, hey, nobody to ask them why and whose business is it. So road diggings go on, not just by public agencies, but even by private citizens. So not only has the government kind of abdicated it, I think the citizens have also taken a leading role in abusing our public spaces, while ironically keeping their private, quarters, their apartment or their gated community, etc., in the heights of luxury. So you can often see this effect. You're walking down, inside a gated community or a nicer apartment, and it looks like Japan inside. You step out, and anything can strike you. There's gusts of air pollution, sewage, cows roaming and just pooping everywhere, stray dogs, etc., etc. So all of this is more than an inconvenience. It is actually an indignity. You walk around and you think, what have we done to ourselves? What did we do with 75 years of freedom? We have not learned to govern ourselves, and that's an appalling shame. And we are obsessed with elections, and we want to elect politicians, and then we kind of outsource it to the politicians and the government to say, okay, you take care of all this. And so it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't.
If you have no interest in your own community, in your own village, in your own town, nobody is going to save you.
That I think is a powerful statement, because we've been talking about active citizenship on the previous podcast on what does it take to be an active citizen and why should you be that. Like you said, we all take care of our houses neat and clean and think that it is somebody else's responsibility. True that there is a government which has been elected, there are bureaucrats who are supposed to do certain things, but then in the maturity curve of where we have come, they are definitely not capacitated, they are definitely not provided the adequate resources. We can always say that we have paid our taxes and we are paying it more than enough, but it's expecting of a quid pro quo which is not sufficient in number compared to the size of the responsibilities that they have been burdened with. This is not to let them off the hook. This is not to give them a loose rope. but it is just to understand the practicalities of we will get here, but you're expecting it probably too soon, right? It's possible that we are expecting certain maturity from them that they themselves are struggling to come to.
So it's actually like this. It's, I think when if you visited our locality in 2011-12, you would see that it was very flood prone. It was very sewagey. There's trash and debris everywhere, like any other. I mean, it's just describing it normally. A very narrow road, bullock cart path, they call it, 18-foot wide, with a very large, traffic on top of it. Very dangerous for pedestrians. Constantly dug up by various civic agencies, which are not interested in coordinating with each other, and also destroying each other's underground assets. So Kaveri will put their line, Bescom will cut up Kaveri and put up their line. Then BSNL will come, cut up Bescom, and so on. So the cycle of constant repair keeps on going. So it was like a gigantic, I would say, slum with some very fancy, gated communities attached onto that road. So the difference couldn't be more stark, and so what did we do? We lobbied with the necessary, with the necessary landlords. In this case, there's this very big tech park to grant us some land, to widen the road, which they did. And so finally we got a good road, at least in width, right? And again, I want to make a small point that, we did approach the government, BBMP, Town Planning Department, but the Town Planning Department said that your road doesn't come under the CDP, Comprehensive Development Plan. So therefore, you are going to be relegated to 18 feet wide. So it was actually, the farsightedness of that Brigade Tech Park, that landlord, to actually grant the land to us, to grant the land to the public, to actually make it a wider road. But what happens when you make it a wider road? Immediately parking starts. Merely having a large unregulated road doesn't actually help. It has to be laned. It has to be disciplined. And, sometimes a wider road actually attracts more chaotic traffic because people try to overtake and so on and so forth. So with the wider road, we got rid of parking by creating bollarded walkways, by laning the roads with medians and so on and so forth. And and before this, we did get the government to asphalt it completely. And then after that, if any civic agency wanted to dig it up, we would discuss with them and say that, no, you have to take this path, or you have to create a permanent, culvert for, certain cables or lines or whatever. So that work of coordination was done by us. Some of the culverts and some of the underground asset ways, actually built by us. The footwalks are built by us, and so on and so forth. And the daily maintenance of this, and this is very important, the daily maintenance, that means the sweeping of the footwalks, the streets, and the cleaning of the drains is actually carried out, funded by the residents themselves. So we don't get Paura Karmikas to our locality. Rather, it is completely maintained by us. And therefore, the moment something gets clogged in the drain and people still put trash in the drain, at least upstream, we right away remove it. So if you come today, you'll see a broad asphalted road, but importantly, it is laned. Okay, there are hardly any floods. And the last flood was September 5th, 2022, which was a overall flood for Bangalore. But even that didn't strike us as hard. And before that, there was no flood for I think a year before that, and so on and so forth. So floods that were like a weekly occurrence during the rains completely vanished. Besides that, you mentioned the lake. We attracted CSR to develop a sewage treatment plant in the lake. We attracted CSR to install trees, do tree planting in the lake as part of community development. So what do we have now? We have sewage treatment plants, community funded, CSR funded. We have daily maintenance, completely community funded. We have we have clean walkways, bollard protected from traffic. We have lane traffic and so on. We have designated parking spots, so people don't park just anywhere they want, but only in a designated parking area, which actually serves as also as a traffic circle. So if you come there and see, you'll see that a section of the road, very narrow section, was completely choked and blocked, actually has been turned into a nice traffic circle. So all these are all initiatives that have not only been conceived by us, but also funded by us. So that's where we are today. I think it is a highly livable community, although we can always do more stuff. So why did we choose to do this ourselves? What was the reaction, or why did we not, approach the government for this? I think that was your question, right?
It was because, you did answer that you got the government to do certain things, but that was you had an engagement, an active engagement with the government to say, you do this part, you do this part.
Yes.
You achieved all this because you had a functional purpose in mind. For this locality where you all live, you understood what you wanted and how you wanted that. And it was not random act of applying a template from somewhere else alone. Somebody coming in from the outside with the government and applying a template from some other area, having the same boxes, the same contracting, having the same way of as much of road width as possible, would have done justice to your layout, right?
I think they would not have, because I think the government has, as there are many structural problems, involved with government contracting and even government officers. So the first problem is that the officer does not report to the end citizen, like me, the end user of the road or of the colorway, or that is of the waterway or anything like that. Leaving aside the poor behavior of citizens with dumping sewage or causing chaos in traffic, leaving aside all that, let's say you do approach the government. You have two options. One is the officer, one is the politician, right? At the officer level, they generally will not give you any audience unless you're already understood to be some sort of a local activist or leader. So the end user, end citizen who goes up and says there's a pothole will not get any hearing at all. The other structural problem is that the power flow is understood to be from the officer to the citizen, which is kind of odd because this is a democracy. We are supposed to be the bosses and we pay the taxes and we pay their salaries. But pointing something out like that is very offensive. Everything that the officer does for you, let's say asphalts a road, let's say takes up your request for, I don't know, something, fixing a pothole. Everything of that sort is understood to be a grant or a gift from the goodness of the officer to the people, to you, right? But it's not like that. We have paid our taxes, right? And the officer's salary comes from you. So that is another structural problem. The third structural problem is the relationship between the politicians and the officers. You walk up to a politician, you will most likely, even a small citizen, will get an audience with the politician. I think if you just try, you speak to your local ward. There's no ward council anymore, but when they come back or speak to your MLA or MP, most likely you will get an audience and even a sympathetic one. But even they will find it difficult to push through, the request through the official dump, because of the various processes involved and all, and so on and so forth. So between all of this, you take your average citizen who has a job, who has kids, who has an EMI, who has a commute, who has a boss to worry about. I don't think, we are going to get ordinary people up on their feet and, enraged and, say, we have this issue and the government is not looking at us. I think this is really a civic activism a civic improvement is really a full-time job, and it is open only to people who are already secure in their personal lives. It's a very small fraction of people who are capable of that.
Did you ever feel that the BBMP wouldn't have done this and they weren't going to do this, and this is why you had to do this?
Oh yeah. See, there are some things. The government has. Suppose you even take up, the development of an area. The government is okay. BBMP and its officers are okay with doing things as per a certain template. For example, asphalt a road. That is understood. There is a supply chain. There's a contractors. Even assuming that, let's assume that all the bureaucracy issues are resolved. let's say that the will is there now. We do want to asphalt this road, and they grant the contract to one such person. But if you wanted, but see, the if you look at the high density of Bangalore cities and the nature of their evolution. For example, they were all villages. They had all these families within the villages, farm villages, had multiple disputes, historical disputes, that has resulted in curved and narrow roadways that suddenly expand, or waterways that cross at awkward angles that have been pushed out and then brought back in, and so on and so forth. So if you want to make that into a good living space, each thing is a special purpose urban design. Each thing is a one-time urban design, which might require special thinking. It might require a certain type of street furniture here. It might require a certain type of trench somewhere else. It might require a certain type of water canal going in a certain way, and so on and so forth. And that is so. Basically, everything is non-standard. If you look, especially at the at the outer reaches of Bangalore, and I don't think we in the government have the capacity to deliver on special purpose urban designs. Like if you take a look at downtown Bangalore, which is MG Road and Kasturba, etc., etc. What was it at first? One time it was British land. They simply came and bought out that village, the set of villages, and created effectively what was a gated community, right? So they could plan it from scratch. They could raise down everything and say, okay, perpendicular parallel roads, right? The same thing happens in modern day gated communities, right? They buy out, large section of a village and then say, here we are going to do something, greenfield. But we don't have that option in most areas. So the need for design thinking, for urban architecture, I don't think there is any capacity in the BBMP, because this is very non-standard work. I mean, let's say you want to establish a revetment for a lake.
Yeah.
Now, that is standard work. But if you want to solve a particular problem of traffic chaos plus electric lines going above and so on and so forth, then it requires people with the understanding of local history and geography. What will work over there? Okay, what is the history of disputes? Who's the guy most affected, and who's the guy who's likely to give way? To give a right of way. So that kind of stuff, frankly, is not doable by any government.
I think there's a reason for that. There are two principles that you touched upon, which I think is important for people to know. One is the last thing you said. That's one of the principles of subsidiarity in the government, which is that things that can be done at the lowest level, at the nearest to the beneficiary, needs to be done there, so that the local understanding comes. The second thing that you touched upon is there is no discretionary ability for people to change the way things are done on the ground, because most of the times people are adjusting to an existing scenario that has already cropped up. In most of Indian cities, it is that way, is that this has already grown because the way we own properties and build is slightly different from how a town planned scheme would be applied. That is what the job of the BDA was, which is to acquire all of these things, develop a township, which they are doing a shoddy job of already, because the recent, I heard somewhere that they tried to build a township and they have given no space for public parks or playgrounds or any such thing. It's absolutely atrocious. But having done as it may, this is the advantage of a town planning scheme, which the Department of Town and Country Planning, the Bangalore Development Authority, and the development schemes that are done with the development control. All of these things, the master plans, they have to come in together ahead of time, and then the city grows under that, right? In the absence of that, the surrounding areas which are just outside what you call the comprehensive development plan, because your area didn't fall under that, start growing using templates that are not defined.
Yes.
So nobody waits for the panchayat might approve certain things, knowing fully well that there is no a plan. So they have regulations. So this is a very complex topic. I need to touch upon this with someone else. But here's the bottom line. That you're trying to adjust to an existing growth of an area.
Yes. Yes.
And then you are now trying to apply certain principles which is appropriate for that scenario there.
Yes.
And that is not doable by the contracting system of the bureaucracy, because they only have a templated way of contracting it, and they might work with you if you come up with new thinking and allow you to do those things, but they will not do it themselves because it does not fit in their templated way of things.
I agree.
But apparently, I think they have been kind enough to work with you to say, okay, you're doing something, I'll give you the permissions, but I'm not going to do it, right?
Yes, exactly. So, for example, I mean, if you wanted to establish a footpath, I mean, the government standard of the footpath, if you can call it a standard, is an elevated footpath, which often is elevated, like perhaps by literally 12, 18 feet, which makes it not only unusable, but is also a waste of limited urban space. I mean, sometimes you have only, let's say, 25 feet or 30 feet of a road, and you want to very close, tightly optimize it, and then you put a footpath. And what a government contractor is interested in the money, right? They are not interested in the finer aspects of design or the applicability or adaptability of the design to a particular situation. So they just come and do something. And of course, the open secret is there is no quality control, because the contractor receives his money often based on a kickback. I mean, let me be very honest with you, right?
Yeah,
when
sure.
there's a kickback system in place, quality control goes for a toss. Why would the government come and check on quality if the officers themselves are getting paid, right? So quality control, design, everything goes for a toss. Coming to the to the aspect of footpaths, what we did, and I think you saw it, is that we used protective bollards. Bollards are nothing but small pillars made of concrete, RCC, which typically they use it perpendicular to the direction of the footpath, but we actually used it to create a walkway. And the walkway is actually at the level of the road. It's curb level. It's got 0 inches between the road and the pedestrian footway. And when you did do it like that, there is no hurdle for the pedestrian to get it and get out. I mean, you don't even and there is no waste of space at all, right? So that is the kind of an innovation that, I mean, a very tiny innovation, but I think it has had a big effect, because the pedestrian traffic has gone up and the vehicular traffic has come down.
There's a lot of complexity underground that you had to solve in your particular the junction that you said. There's a lot of wires and other things. Is that a big problem in most places which we seem to overlook?
I think it is a very big problem, because I'll tell you what happened for us. We asphalted the road, with government funds and I think it was in mid 2021, June, July 2021. Within 2 weeks, the BESCOM wanted to cut up the road and lay a new cable, which is a terrible waste of taxpayer money, first of all. And secondly, it is a major inconvenience, because it's going to run the cycle over and over again. So what we did is we worked with the BESCOM to route it through another, a less disruptive way. But that routing also required us to build a culvert across the road, a culvert that would carry the cable and also sustain, a cross traffic, very, very heavy load of, thousands of vehicles of very heavy tonnage through the road. So that culvert we built, we called it a duct culvert. That culvert we financed and we actually built. We financed, that is through crowd-funded sources. We ourselves raised the money, and we hired. We didn't hire, actually. We consulted with some excellent structural engineers who gave us a good design, and then we actually executed it. So I think that is a very important aspect. The underground assets in Bangalore. We don't have any proper ducting, and this is again goes back to what we talked about before, that we don't have none of our the 90% of Bangalore is not planned. It is just organic growth. Villages come up. Villages used to be there, and suddenly they become urbanized. Suddenly farmland becomes an apartment, and a bunch of farmlands becomes a tech park. It becomes a big center of employment, etc., etc. The road remains narrow. And then the people over there want additional electricity. Oh, okay, let's give them additional electricity. How do you do it? By just cutting up the road. And the people over there want Kaveri. They want water. it's a political election promise. Great, let's cut up the road and cut up the other underground assets along with it. And so there is no, I think, first of all, it's accurate to say that there is no planning of the town. But it's also accurate to say, in our context, that there was no opportunity for planning. Our population growth has been so explosive. And I'm not talking about organic population growth. I mean, the number of babies that a couple has, but it's just the powerful immigration pressure. So, a big center of employment suddenly opens up, we are very happy to have those centers of employment. But we've never had a chance to plan, which is why, going from one center of employment to another, or to your house, or to the school, is such a hassle and such a trek through mountains of debris and dug up works, cables, and frankly quite dangerous, and shoddy civic works, and so on and so forth. So all of that in a very small, narrow, very tiny pocket of Bangalore, we have tried to effectively systematize. We've formed an association of the local residents. We've funded it through the local residents. And we've picked up some government functions, not just supervisory or monitoring, not just coordination, although all that is there, but actually improving the infrastructure, actually maintaining it. And it is, in fact, I would say a form of Panchayat Raj, or local government. I think Gandhi was right. Every village has to take care of herself. And there's no shame. And in fact, it is a critical necessity for citizens to own their village, whatever it may take. Obviously, a small city, like a small village like ours, is not going to build a metro. We are not going to send any rocket to Mars. Those are functions. We're not going to build an airport. Those are functions of the central government or of a bigger provincial government, state government. But the daily miseries we own, and we want to fix. And, the daily complaints, which we have found so difficult to bubble up, to surface to the people supposed to be taking care of it, we take care of it ourselves.
Didn't the people ask you, why are we putting money on this thing? And why should we keep doing this for ourselves? My apartment is good enough, I'll keep it clean, and all of this is supposed to be BBMP, and you can keep banging your heads against them a little more. But didn't they ask you, why are you coming to me for money? You also approached corporates for the STP work and other things, though.
Yes.
Sewage treatment plants in the lake. What was the reaction on funding? And do you need rich people like that to be able to do these kind of things? How would this work in a poor community?
That's a great question. So I think the sentiment that you expressed, that this is a government property and I've paid my taxes, is quite prevalent, and it is perhaps quite justified also. And that is some of the pushback that we felt in front. Why are you even taking this up? Why are you trying to fix the road? Why are you trying to sweep it? Why are you trying to clean the drains when it should be the government work? Well, it is the government work. But you try to push the government to clean the drains, it's going to take a lifetime. You try to push the government to build a drain to fix the flood. It's going to take a lifetime. I ask you, is it going to be time efficient for us to live a clean, litter-free road right now? Or am I going to spend the next 25 years continuously battling them to apply their tax money over here? I mean, if anybody is interested in that aspect of getting government to work, by all means, anybody in my community or outside is interested in getting government to work, I think that is a very noble act of activism. Please, by all means, make it your full-time task to put the government to account, make sure that your taxpayer, that's your tax money is well spent. But I can also assure you that is not something we have not done. And I think it is an inefficient use of time. If you're interested in quality of life right now, then I suggest that you put down some time and money towards it right now. It will provide more immediate, more powerful and more efficient uh, payback, more efficient rewards than anything you pay to the government. I mean, take a look at the structure of taxation, right? I mean, the way taxes work in India, we don't have that much local tax. I mean, our property tax is a very small fraction of the total taxes we pay. And the taxes are generally speaking centralized. Either they go to New Delhi or they go to, the state of Karnataka, right? And from there, it is used in a massive number of different ways. I mean, it is used to support the highways, missions to Mars, the various army. So there are a lot of uses of taxes, first of all. Secondly, this politicization also. We don't get back from New Delhi what we put into it. In fact, we get back only a third. There are some states that get back three times, right? So our taxes don't fully come back to us. I mean, there's politicization, and then we haven't even started talking about corruption, right? And then there is this other fact that most Indians don't even pay tax because we are not eligible for taxation. For example, I think the tax base in India is something like, I mean, the people who actually earn more than 5 to 7 lakhs, which is when they start paying taxes, not even 2%. In the US or in comparable countries, 53% of the population pays taxes. So when you see that our tax base relative to our population is so small, when you see that it is hyper centralized, when you see that it has so many uses, and when you see that it is politicized, when you see that it is corrupted, and when you see that it is bureaucratized, you are looking at some sort of a massive cliff to climb. You're going to say, yeah, I'm going to make the government work, and I'm going to make it work day after day after day after day. Well, you're going to have, you will never get your street cleaned. Let me assure you of that. Our power karmikas claim that their salaries are stolen. What battle are you going to fight? Are you going to fight the battle of getting government to work, which is a noble battle? Or are you going to fight for a good quality of life right now? If you want a good quality of life right now, then may I suggest that you form a small government, quasi-government, self-help group right now and fund it out of contributions. So we don't insist that people, that is why we are not a taxation organization. We don't tax people. Not a taxing authority. We cannot squeeze money out of people. All we do is we go to people and say, are you interested in a better neighborhood? If so, then you pay. And I think initially there was just about 10% of the population. I mean, I think initially only about 5% of the population actually paid. Even now, it's not such a big fraction of the people that we emphasize. They are all contributions. If you see that the layout is well maintained, it is clean, it is free of floods, that you can walk aram se, with no danger of falling into a drain or no danger of getting run over, then you see that then you can consider continuing your contributions. If we are doing a bad job, then it's going to die a natural death. People are going to stop their contributions. And it is also, so that was the initial pitch. And I think only a few people paid, only a few enlightened people paid. But then I think it has become a little larger now. And we also have smaller groups of people who actually monitor the staff whom we employ. We call them street volunteers. So, okay, the cow dung is not picked up. There's trash here, the debris, etc., etc. This drain is about to flood over, etc. So there are people who volunteer on the street. I mean, residents who volunteer on the street, and there are people who contribute. And we actually have a staff that does the maintenance. We have a group of people who actually looks at improving particular infrastructure. Let's say we are creating a new duct. Let's say we are creating a sewage treatment plant, etc., etc. What is the design for that? I mean, we need professional help, to do all that. I think beyond actually getting people to actually fund and monetarily contribute to it, I think it's also had an effect that people are now more engaged in their community.
Mm.
In the past, where this was a government road and I could litter and trash it, or I could park anywhere I wanted. Today, they think twice about it. Yeah, well, I'm paying for this. I mean, obviously, I've always been paying taxes, but the taxes went to Delhi.
I think what you said is very interesting. I wanted to just pick on that. Now, there are different types of communities. I think it's useful to use this example to formalize that. For the sake of BBMP itself, for them to come and say, look, if you guys can help yourself in a little nicer way, here are some things. Of course, we don't want them to say what you should do, Instead, they could probably just come out and say, as long as you don't do some of these things, which is probably, prevent other people from using your thing, or since it's a public road, but I should let you do what you want and be able to continue. I think that is one way of encouraging more communities to come and say, look, we have a template. And I think they have done that before as well. Namma Bengaluru, Namma Kodugi, or some such thing, where you could come and say, I would do certain things in my area, or pick up some roads and lakes and other things and do it. Collection of funds and the ability of certain communities to come forward and have confidence in people who can execute certain things in your neighborhood is also important. You stood there and you were able to raise those money. Some communities don't have the active citizenship that you were just mentioning, which is standing on the road and getting that done is far more difficult than calling the babu and harassing them and say, you get it, you do it every day, clean this up, do that, do this. It's easier for people to say that, and after a while they get frustrated because the system is only meant to respond like this or a react like this and not a proper commissioned response. The quality of people who will engage in communities need sustained funding, right? Typically, it goes back to what you said. The community will go and say, you know what, look, there are lots of urban planners and people who work in the neighborhoods now, right?
Yes.
So smaller NGOs who come in and work in the neighborhoods, and they try to help the neighborhood out. But they suffer from not being able to fund that, right? Typically, what will happen, you will take those non-profits or urban planning bodies or private agencies and say, I'd like this done, I like to work with you, but I can't, you have to go get your own funding for this. If there is a way of telling this community will fund certain things and get the people in the neighborhood to actually put money for public projects in small ways, you have to formalize that process of saying there is a convenience fee that we have to pay. To get the convenience we need now, beyond waiting for the taxes to do its job. Don't you think that is something worthy of trying to do? Because most of these areas are suffering. I asked you, what will the poor communities do? Forget poor communities. There are richer communities in your area, like Brookefields, which cannot put money on the table because, no, my tax money is what it is and it cannot be anything else. That's not going to go a long way.
I think the concept of convenience fee, or as you call it, convenience fee, is a good thing. I would call it local taxation. I'm sure you live in an apartment. Somebody else lives in a gated community, and there was a time in India when people would not pay the association fees for their own apartment, for their own gated community, because what they would do is, even the staircase of a certain building or apartment is not theirs. Like you would do your jhadu patta cleaning of your apartment and throw the dirt into the stairwell, into the staircase. So, and they would not pay for the upkeep of the lift and so on and so forth. There was a time. I'm talking about 30, 40 years ago, right? Now that consciousness has spread out, and now we've constructed walls around and defined certain gated communities, or defined high rises with parks and fountains and gyms and etc. etc. And we have gotten people to actually pay for those facilities. It's called association fees. You can call it convenience fee or whatever. Right? And I think now we have to take that concept beyond the wall, beyond the gated community wall, and say that, look, there are neighborhoods and there are lakes, there are parks, there are roads in the neighborhood, there are other facilities in the neighborhood. Formally, the title belongs to the government, but actually it belongs to the community. It is spiritually owned by the community. So you've got to pay for it. Now, I think the idea will eventually take root, but how long it will take to take root, I don't know, because we have expanded our mindset, our cultural boundary of what is ours. We have expanded it outside the four walls of our personal house into, let's say, the apartment, the walls of the apartment itself. So now you go to Bangalore apartments, they're very swanky. And I'm not talking about the interior of a particular apartment unit.
Yeah.
I'm talking
even
when you enter
areas.
the gate. Yes, when you enter the gate, there's a beautiful children's park to the left. There's a beautiful gym inside. Everything is maintained. Obviously, people are willing to pay money for it. So now we want to ask, is this city not yours? Is this village not yours? Does your world end with the walls of your apartment? If so, then don't pay anything. Don't pay, the convenience fee or the local taxes. But if you are interested in having a good walk from your gated community to your school, or from your gated community to your friend's gated community, and you don't want to get run over, or you want trees on both sides and a well planned, just like the inside of your gated community, then you might consider the concept of local taxation. So it's going to take a while, but I'm sure that is the way forward.
But even if you don't call it a local tax, it could be assessed or a fee of some kind, or something that you can.
Yeah, it's a fee. But the thing is, the crucial aspect of this is that it has to be locally collected and locally.
That's the point I was getting at, which is it directly comes here. It doesn't go through the convoluted channel of going there, going through a finance commission, getting it granted, then two levels down. You don't have that cycle. It's here. You give it and you see it.
Give it and you see it. And see why is a gated community taken care of so well? Because everybody knows who the treasurer is. If the treasurer stole money, the treasurer is your neighbor, is your son's friend's mother, something like that. That's your treasurer. If she stole money, she's going to be tarred and feathered. She's going to be excommunicated from the community, right? Whereas if you pay taxes to Delhi, it eventually comes down to you, but in the form of grants. They call it grants. Like as though they are giving it to us. They're not giving it to us. It's our own tax, but we don't recognize it as ours. So what we have, the system, the current financial system, the public finance system has done, it has made us beggars. We go to the offices and, can you please fix our road? Can you please clean it? No, there is no such need. You can cut our central taxation substantially. You can simply contribute to the local treasurer. When I say local treasurer, I mean, the treasurer of the neighborhood. Let him and, the executive committee of the neighborhood, just like in an apartment community, let them do basic things, Let them clean the road every day. If there's a pothole, let them fix it. Why should we wait for a grant? Why should we wait for some benevolence, some blessing from the local officers? Okay, I will, take care of this pothole. That too after so much lobbying. Our time is money. If I spend 3-4 weeks continuously walking up to some office and getting rejected, frankly, from there, when I can fix, a 10,000 rupee pothole on my own, people should be doing it. And I'll tell you one more thing. Local taxation is much more efficient. For these 4,000 families, I think just about 50% or so actually pay up, because as I said, we are not a taxing authority. And each family pays no more than 200 rupees per month as the so-called, association, convenience fee or local maintenance fee. 200 rupees per month per family to maintain a largish, like a multi-thousand dwelling neighborhood with lots of incoming and outgoing traffic is very cheap. Have you ever given any tax which is as low as 200 rupees for your family per month?
Not really. My water bill is like that, but other than that, which shouldn't be, which actually should be a lot more. But anyway,
it should be a lot more.
Cheap. Yeah, but your apartment maintenance costs you a lot more than the public space maintenance. That is more useful for you to get into and out of the so nice place that you built. You want to come out into a shithole, it just takes 200 rupees to clean that up. Why can't we do that?
It takes, if 4,000 families can pay 200 rupees, that's a lot of money. I think, if I'm doing the math right, I think it's 40,000 it's 8 lakhs. We collect only 1 lakh a month. Our maintenance is only 1 lakh a month. That means the number of people giving is a lot less. And many don't pay all of the 200 rupees because they say they can't afford it. So we leave it at that, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 0. It's your contribution. If you're doing a good job, if you want this neighborhood to look good, then, you give some. So with that 1 lakh a month, we hire, 4 sweepers and we hire a tractor. We hire all the equipment that we need, the tools, this, that. So 1 lakh a month is enough to take care of of a stretch of road, which is maintenance wise, which is 2 kilometers long. And every infrastructure project, like let's say footpaths, bollards, sewage treatment plant, trees, etc., that has separate, fundraising rounds. But I think, if you pay thousands of rupees to your apartment, or sometimes 10,000 rupees, fancy gated community, per month to take care of the insides of the gated community, you can pay 200 for a slightly better neighborhood. And if all the neighborhoods did the same thing, I think there would be a tremendous, not only improvement in quality of life, but a tremendous improvement in engagement, and the feeling like this thing is mine, man. This road is as much mine as this personal apartment of mine.
I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a different thought in how we approach our neighborhood improvements. We are working in that reality, no? I mean, the urban planning has failed us. The town
Yes.
planning schemes that were supposed to have been done has
Yes.
failed us. When it has
Correct.
failed, you could either wait for that to correct, which is not going to
Yes.
happen in what you have already built. That is there, it is standing. It's not going to be
Yes.
another town planning scheme to fix it. Now you fix what you have, and you can wait 25 years to do that, the way you said, wait for taxes to percolate, or pay a small convenience fee or whatever local taxes that you may want to call it. Put it in something that is directly utilized there, and you can have accountability. And like you said, if it is not done well, you can tar and feather the person. I think that's a beautiful
Yes.
way of looking at it. Yes, this is only possible right now with communities which can afford it, which is at least probably half of the city and or more of the city. True, but let's get started and not wait for the perfect. Let's take what we have and make something out of it and start doing a
I
few
love
more
that.
of this, right? And more of that, right? I mean, have a
I
few
love
more
that.
of that. Have a few more of
I
that.
love Satya, I love your sympathetic view, I mean, you have not, you do say that even if it is just a small fraction of the communities that are able to afford and are enlightened enough to, let's start with that.
Yeah.
Let's start. Let a few people show the way, and if it catches on, then maybe it'll spread. And I mean, 200 rupees a month is something anybody can afford. It's hardly rich. It's hardly wealthy.
I think there are 2-3 things that precede it. One is the ability of every community to have people like you share that knowledge or have them in your community to do work. Two is, if they don't have, how do they hire it or rent it or do something with it? Three is actually understand what the costing is and start putting it out and paying for it separately as an improvement fee or an improvement district that you create for yourself, and
Yes.
start doing that. There are multiple lessons I think we should explore and probably take a dig with a few others and see where it goes. Funding is going to be the biggest thing, and if it can
Yes.
be put in, and if the communities make a resolve that, okay, this gang of people are going to do something for us, we'll hold them accountable. Here's the first check of money. Let's see where you go.
Yes.
And start with the superficial stuff, make it look, then keep going on and on. Yeah, some enforcement and all that, but like you said, some maintenance can be done. Some amount
Yes.
of policing has been done. I haven't gotten into the enforcement and policing part, but here's where we are. I think it's a good example. And thanks, Arvind, again for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And
thank you for having me over. Thank you for this delightful interview, and thank you for appreciating the work that we've done, and with all its warts and challenges. Thank you.
It's a story to be told.